So I'm starting a game of Unconditional Surrender, World War II in Europe. A full campaign game, which is looking quite interesting. I started this, set it up yesterday and started last night and recorded a little bit on my on my iPhone, but the quality was terrible. So I'm trying to do it a little bit better now. So that said, what that means is that we missed the invasion of Poland last night. Well, the Germans invaded Poland somewhere in where that single German country is up over there. Now I played the training scenario and completely messed it up. The Germans did a much better job of invading Poland in the real game, thankfully. Took Poland out in September, and since then not a lot has been happening. But it is still extremely interesting to play through. The weather was looking pretty good for an invasion of Holland. I mean, the weather stayed good into October, and the Germans seriously considered going straight into Holland. But the way the game sets things up, as soon as you do something, invade Holland, Belgium, France or Great Britain, you set a timer running for when Russia are going to cease believing the Nazi-Soviet pact. And likewise, if you do it the other way around, if you invade Russia first, you set a timer running on when the Western Allies are going to end their appeasement policy. So just rushing in and grabbing Holland before the Germans were really set up didn't make a lot of sense, and that is quite a cute little mechanic for making sure that, or for directing the Germans to not knock out Holland, Belgium and France all in one go, because you want to get it done all in one sweep as quickly as possible so that you can turn your attention back to the Eastern Front, where the clock will be ticking. So there's been something of a lull, the phony war through December, October, November, December, just some production of units going on. What has been interesting as well is the politics. There's a political cup that you draw, that you can pay each of the factions, the Axis, the Western Allies and the Soviets can pay to either put chits into or draw chits out of. And there's been a lot of chit drawing going on so far. If you see down there the diplomacy cup holding box down there, those are all the chits that have been pulled out turn by turn. So the Axis pulled out that, you can see a little, I don't know if you can see, let's see if we can zoom in there. No. The political failure, that was the first chit out of the pot. And the Axis pulled that, and Rome actually went pro Western Ally for a while, much to the Germans' disgust and dismay. And what's subsequently happened is that the Germans have got that back under control. They pulled a political success the next turn and managed to make it neutral, and they've pulled then they pulled their pro-Axis marker out, and Italy is pro-Axis. You can see the pro-Axis marker down there on Rome. But Turkey down there, let's see if I can, there's Ankara, and that has got a pro-Soviet marker sat in it, if it would focus. It doesn't look like it wants to focus particularly on that, but there it is. And the Russians have also, the Soviets have also managed to have Bessarabia ceded to them, which is the area in here on the Black Sea. In front of Odessa, you can see this river line and a dotted red line in front of it. Well, that river line is now all Russian, and it means the Russians have a second line of river defence in southern Russia, and they've also had Latvia ceded to themselves, which is up here. You can see Latvia in there. And again, if you can see that river line from Riga, the Duna River running down through there, and that is another line of defence that they've now got between Germany and essentially Leningrad right up in the north. So the Russians are not able to act particularly because they are still under the Soviet Nazi pact, but they are politically making ground. They are getting these little miners under their control to set up defence lines, and they've got Turkey ready to join them as a Soviet ally, which would be quite interesting. So that is the state of play at the moment. We've just gone into, just about to start January 1940, and basically the Germans are massed down here on the French border and are ready to go in to Holland, Belgium and France. Well, basically the moment the weather clears up. So if it gets good in March or February, they get a good window, then once the weather clears up they will be going in, and that will really set the clock ticking on the game really taking off, because the first 6 months have been very easy to play through. Just conquer Poland and shift the forces over, but I'm expecting it to get a little more complex and time consuming once these wars with more significant countries, militarily significant countries I should say, sorry Poland, kicks off. So here we go. So January 1940 was about as eventful as predicted, which is to say that very little happened. A little bit more German build-up with a new Luftwaffe unit appearing over in Königsberg, some German troops being raised in, I can't even remember where, Eastern Germany. Very static here on the border of Belgium, Holland, France, and a little bit of political manoeuvring. The Germans threw a political failure back in the cup just to stop the Allies and Soviets double teaming. This is something that I'm not entirely sure about it yet, because there's one Axis player and essentially two non-Axis players. So if you're and they go in the order of Axis, Western, Soviets. So once the Axis has been, the Western powers can throw chits in the cup for the Soviets to try and draw, and if there's nothing nasty in the cup, like a political failure, then the Soviets can just rattle through the politics deck here pretty much with impunity, especially the political draw cup, especially with knowing that they're really not likely to be attacked until the summer of 41. So you know, they can sit here and look at the next 15 months as just an opportunity to rattle through good positive political events, try and get Turkey on their side, try and keep the Germans from swaying, you know, Bulgaria or Hungary or Yugoslavia, and Greece and Italy, and really try and put the screws on the Germans politically. And I'm not entirely sure what Germany's supposed to do about that. However, the Germans do get political bonuses for conquering countries. So as they storm through the Netherlands and Belgium, they'll start getting pro-Axis markers, I think, going into the cup for them to draw themselves. And that reminds me they really ought to start having some sort of a plan for Denmark and Norway, because I haven't thought about the invasion of Denmark and Norway at all, nor when to time it, or even if whether to do it. Haven't considered it, so that's something to think about, perhaps just in this quiet moment before the invasion of France, well, the Low Countries in France gets underway in the next couple of months. Well, so I could have anticipated this, but not a lot happened again in February 1940. As you can see, if I zoom in down here, the weather on that table, you can see, is terrible across the board. So it's not declaring war kind of conditions. I reminded myself of the Germans, who just to not forget about Denmark, so they've just built up a little bit of force over there, shifted a convoy around into the Kiel port with the Norwegian army ready to head to Oslo. They do have some aircraft from the Luftwaffe who are which are close enough to a rebase up into Denmark, so that they can, if they want to, do some paradrops into Oslo, based out of Aalborg, up there on the northern tip of Denmark. So if the Germans can take that port and city, then they'll base out of there and then paradrop into Oslo, to try and aid their chances of a naval, I forget what they call it, amphibious invasion. Otherwise, lots of a bit more politics going on. The Germans drew a no event. The Allies drew a area seized by the Russians, so the Russians were able to take control of Estonia, which is now ceded to Russia. So Estonia, Latvia, Bessarabia and eastern Poland are all now in Russian hands. But the Russians drew a political failure that the Germans had thrown in a turn or so ago, and that gave the Germans an interesting choice. They could have activated Romania, which has a pro-Axis marker in it. That one sitting in there, that pro-Axis marker sat there. But they didn't quite see the point of having Romanian troops sat around for the next year, 18 months, not really doing a lot. So, and they were a little bit worried about the fact that there was a pro-Russian marker in Ankara. So they've actually done some diplomatic work to bring the Turkish government back into a neutral stance for now, and that suits the Germans, I guess. Certainly better than having them pro-Russian in their opinions. So, so that's it, and we'll see. Just waiting for the weather rolls to clear up, basically, before some action kicks off. But it's quite fun seeing how the politics can sort of play out, how the chip draws can go, and sitting there musing as to Hutu influence, a little bit like a sort of mini twilight struggle. And that is the weather for March. I've just done the roll, and as you can see, apart from North Africa and the Middle East being a little bit warmer and nicer, it's still severe weather across Europe and the Soviet Union, and that means that there's going to be pretty much no action going into March, and the Germans are just going to have to sit there and wait for things to go their way. Some nice rolls on the weather tables, but at the moment they are rolling horrible high numbers, giving them severe weather all over the place. Well, I said that nothing was happening, and I was completely wrong. So we moved into April, and as you can see from the weather box here again, the weather has remained absolutely dreadful. However, in March there were 5 tokens in the political diplomacy cup, and there were 3 no events and 2 political successes. The Germans threw in 5 and drew a no event, so the Allies thought, well, we'll give it a try, 50-50 chance, drew a no event. The Russians, with 2 political successes and 1 no event in there, thought they had to hit a political success and drew a no event. What that meant was that, now you can see the 3 no events up, but what that meant was that the next turn the Germans knew that they could pull that political success marker. They knew it, because there were only 2 counters left in the pot, and they were both political success. And so they've paid their 5 in the politics phase in April 1940 and thought, okay, fair enough, what shall we do? Now the trouble is that they know that the next person to draw, the Allies, the Western Allies, are also going to draw, if they pay, are also going to draw a political success. So they know that whatever they do can be countered immediately, unless they do something that can't be reversed, which is what they've chosen to do. And there are the Italians getting ready to join the fray. So all the yellow counters there along the edge of the map. So Italy is activated, and I am now scrambling around trying to work out what that's going to mean. It certainly isn't going to trigger any events involving sort of USA activation, and it shouldn't change the situation too much here in terms of the invasion of France. If I can find France, there we go. Let me zoom out so that I can actually see the map. But it is going to trigger a, what's it called, a Mediterranean crisis, which I think is going to see all kinds of extra units hit the board, perhaps across North Africa and into the Middle East. So we might be getting the African campaign a little bit earlier than we expected. But the Germans just decided, the Axis player, I should stop saying Germans, the Axis player just decided to bring the Italians in a bit early and see if we can't get control of the control of the Mediterranean here, and see whether that's going to help out. So that's the state of play, and I now need to work out what on earth is happening. Well, that Italian entry into the war is certainly, it's going to be like the marker where things start happening, because over here, back on the weather track, the weather pretty much has cleared up, certainly across northern and central Europe, and is only poor in North Africa, really. But I can't see much happening in North Africa right yet. It's It's this area here where things are about to take off quite significantly. So the Germans are about to invade, and just considering their options on who to declare war on. Is it going to be Denmark and Norway, or is it going to be Holland and Belgium, or is it going to be all four? So just having a quick think about that.